Hello and welcome to this live webinar with the title "With Waste Prevention in the Nordics." We are very happy to invite for next 90 minutes a thrilling panel and thrilling deep dives how we apply waste prevention in the Nordics. And this is based on the work that is performed by the Nordic Working Group for Circular Economy, NCE, which is a coalition or working group with Nordic Council of Ministers. The global resource consumption is the primary cause of the climate crisis. And if we continue as we are now without new policies, global resources use will increase by 60% within the next 35 years. This is clearly stated in the Global Resource Outlook 2024, and we are building on these. We are trying to solve these challenges immediately. And now the working group for Circular Economy of Nordic Council of Ministers are in the process of making a report promoting reuse and circular business models in the Nordic region. In this webinar, we will be hearing about some key findings, both from the report, from policymakers, from industry stakeholders, and we will try to bridge this mapping to the Nordic reality and Nordic agenda by policy and regulatory mandates. So hereby we start. I welcome Siri Arntzen-Bellica, Chair of the Nordic Working Group for Circular Economy, to open this webinar. The stage is yours.
Welcome all to the webinar on behalf of the NCE. The NCE is the Nordic Council of Ministers Working Group for Circular Economy, and my name is Siri Arntzen-Bellica. I'm working within the Ministry of Climate and Environment here in Norway, and we're currently holding the chair of NCE. And we consist of representatives from all the Nordic environmental authorities. This includes also the small society regions, Greenland, Faroe Islands, and Åland. And we're very happy to see that there's so many speakers that have very important messages for you, and some of you have also taken the time to watch this webinar on what we believe to be a very important topic. So NCE is mandated to promote the transition to a circular economy in the Nordic region. And we do this by developing new knowledge that is needed to enable this transition and distribute it to the relevant stakeholders and use it within the environmental authorities in the Nordic countries. So we publish report on a wide spectrum of topics within the circular economy, and common for these is that it's an identified knowledge gap specifically interesting for the Nordic region. So waste prevention is one example. Another example is our two most recent reports, the first mapped the potential for recycling of critical raw materials in the Nordics. And the others present specific eco-design requirements for data services and storage products. Both are very relevant topics due to the need of critical raw materials and the importance of eco-design requirements that ensure both resource efficiency and especially focus on scarce and critical raw materials. So hopefully this knowledge is relevant for Nordic governments, but also the EU Commission in developing new eco-design requirements in this field. While recycling often is the most discussed topic when we talk about circular economy, there is many other aspects that are also equally important. And today we're here to discuss waste prevention, the uppermost level of the waste hierarchy, and thereby the single most important topic in order to reduce consumption of new materials. Waste prevention is one of NCE's prioritized areas of work, and we find it important that this area is given more prominence. So last year, we commissioned Gaia to map Nordic initiatives for waste prevention and see what all the different Nordic countries do on this field. And hopefully the potential will be that we can roll this out in a broader scale across the Nordic countries. The initial findings are very interesting, and Gaia will present some of them today. And this year, NCE has asked Gaia to continue researching some of these initial findings with the aim that this can be valuable knowledge for Nordic authorities when we address this topic. As we know, waste prevention can be a whole wide range of different initiatives. Something are more related to product policy, other waste policy, but also a lot has to do with consumer behavior. It may be also economic incentives provided by authorities to reduce waste. It may be platforms for buying and selling secondhand items. It may be private initiatives to reduce food waste, or it may be other initiatives promoted either by public entities or private companies. So in this webinar, we'll hear from different actors on what they believe must be done to reduce waste. So we're very happy to have such a wide range of stakeholders with us today, and hopefully that this event will spark some conversation and put waste prevention on the agenda as a vital aspect of the transition to circular economy. So thank you, and looking forward to listening in. Thank you.
Excellent, Siri Arntzen-Bellika, Chair of Nordic Working Group for Circular Economy. And we'll just invite and Gaia, who has delivered this first part of the report, will be presenting the highlights and deliver some of the insights to help us clarify and actually try to understand what is not waste prevention. So here we go, Susanna. We know that in a world which is actually as fast transitioning to circular economy, we see that there are 75 countries having their own roadmaps to circular economy. Chatham House actually identified more than 2,000 policies to enable this transition. How do you know what works and what are just basically funny and fresh ideas? I'm very happy that you will clarify a little bit of this field for us. Susanna, welcome.
Thank you, Katrina. Thank you to the NCE for inviting us to this webinar. As the chair started in her introduction, we have been working with the NCE from last year. So this is the second year we are working on this really important and quite challenging but very exciting topic of waste prevention. And we have been looking especially into the question, what would be effective measures for waste prevention when it comes to municipal waste? So that is mainly the waste that we produce with the households and also the businesses and organizations on the municipal level. Then we have looked into what kind of policies and steering instruments there are in place right now and what would be needed.
Just a small thing. Can you please make the full screen so we can even see even better your presentation?
I am trying. I am seeing my full screen, but just a second.
On the PowerPoint going down to the right, and you push the full screen
there,
feature.
I think. Is that just a second? Is this better?
This looks very good.
Let's continue.
Yeah.
So we have looked at what would be the best policies and steering instruments to support the waste prevention and also reuse. And I will just in a while go a little bit through how we have defined and what we have looked into more specifically, but also really important as NCE is focusing also on the dissemination communication aspect this year. How can we engage and raise awareness both among policymakers, that is the people that have the authority to change the economic instruments, to change the policies towards a more enabling operating environment for businesses, but also the businesses themselves and for the society and the consumers. And so this year we are trying to wrap up this work, and I will also tell a little bit more about the next steps. But so far, what we have done so far, we looked at the whole at the circular economy as this system and at the systemic change that is needed for the circular transition. And basically, waste prevention is everything that happens before you go to the recycling stations. So starting from how to use some virgin raw materials and how to build a system where less material is needed, to the design and production, where you can refuse materials, that is make a product or a material redundant or change it into a more sustainable one, and how you can reduce the use of resources by more efficient manufacturing and more efficient use of them. Then we have the whole chain of consumption, which is in the really key in waste prevention, especially when it comes to the municipal waste. So everything you can do to extend the lifespan of products through different kind of services and different kind of models that can help you to reuse the products and materials, to repair them, to refurbish them, and also to rethink products to make their use more intensive, for example, by sharing products instead of owning them. And the consumption part is, of course, where most of the things happen. We have not in this project looked into how to recycle materials, as that is really kind of not part of the real the waste prevention focus where we would like the Nordic societies to go. We have also not looked very specifically into how to kind of decrease the consumption as such, and how to make choices that would mean that we will not need new products, but we have just looked at how to reuse and prolong the lifetime of what we already have. That is taking care of the existing things and making sure that we do not discard and replace them with new products, but try to take the most out of what is already there. And this means that there are a lot of different policies, measures, instruments, actions that are needed, both from the producers, the businesses, from the consumers, and where policymakers can make the society work better and create an operating environment where it is more easier and where it's more affordable to take care of what we already have than to just produce new items. We have seen that waste prevention is already a top priority at the policy level, and I'm sure that we will hear more about that in this webinar after my presentation. The EU Waste Framework Directive targets waste prevention as a primary goal, and it's really important to think that this is not only about reducing the absolute quantity of waste, but especially also to reduce the adverse impacts of waste on environment and on human health, and to make sure that the content of harmful substances in materials and products is reduced. And this makes it even more challenging because we cannot only look at where most waste is produced, but what is the composition of the waste that is produced, and how easy is it to to take care of those products, how much negative impacts can they have on the environment. And we have seen also that all the Nordic countries flag waste prevention in their national policies. Almost all the 8 Nordic countries have national waste policies, and there are also new waste policies being updated right now. But we have also seen that there is still a need for more effective measures, especially policy measures and economic incentives, and that is probably why the NCE is now putting their really big focus on this item. When we looked into, the household waste and the municipal waste consists of a lot of different things, and we looked we tried to look into the system, and we saw that some of these waste fractions already have pretty good systems, at least for recirculating materials. So we chose in this work to look more into those where we see that there really is still a need to make things better. So we didn't really look into, for example, the bottle packaging and those waste fractions where there are very good systems in place for returning your packaging and so on. But we looked at the more problematic things. So we have at least the plastics, the textiles, we have the bio waste, especially the food waste. We have the household electronics that are part of the WEE. We have the hazardous waste, and we have mixed waste. And then we chose from these scope, we have chosen some waste fractions that we have been looking a little bit more into, like case studies. And we've also mapped what the Nordic countries are already doing. We had quite a broad focus in our work. So we looked both into measures that are more kind of voluntary measures that businesses can do by themselves, measures that businesses and citizens can do together, but also on policy measures. And we found, we tried then to assess, these different kind of measures and looking into what is their potential to reduce waste and what is the ease of implementation. And this is kind of the scale that we have been using during this whole work. And we will continue using this assessment scale. So in our final report that should be published sometimes towards the end of the year, you can probably find more examples of that. But just to show a few examples, among the things that have good potential and are fairly easy to implement, we found a lot of measures that already are in place, like second-hand platforms for reselling things that then, I mean, will lead to reuse, both second-hand platforms for private persons, but also, I mean, the commercial ones. There are very well-functioning such in all Nordic countries for different kind of products. We also looked at, for example, how many municipal waste management companies are moving more towards reuse. So they kind of add these kind of reuse station possibilities in the waste management places, so they do not only recirculate materials, but there is a possibility to try to find new owners for different kind of things. There are different kind of, for example, in the food sector, you have both, I mean, these Too Good To Go apps, more commercial apps where you can buy food from restaurants a little bit cheaper when the day is turning into the evening. And there is also, I mean, the really important work with trying to make a difference between best before and really already bad food items, so that you also can be able, I mean, to sell food that is not maybe really at the top, but is still possible to eat, which will again, I mean, then lead into a better composition of the waste pyramid. But we also saw that many of these examples are not would need more support at the policy level, and there would be a need for more kind of sticks and carrots, both in regulation and in economic incentives towards making the operating environment for these reuse and waste prevention possibilities much better than it is today. So we agreed with the NCE that we will look a little bit more into textiles as a good case study to looking into the systemic change, because when it comes to clothes and textiles, there is a lot that can be done from the entire thinking, the entire value chain, from designing items that are more durable, from putting different kind of bans on fast fashion that is already happening, for example, in France, and different kind of ways to try to maximize the lifetime of clothing items and of textiles. You can reuse them through secondhand or other means of giving things away. There have been a lot of very interesting business cases with clothes rental. Unfortunately, they have had some difficulties in working commercially in the Nordic countries as for now. And you can repair, you can also refurbish and repurpose clothing items, and there is a lot of room also for service models that could support this kind of action. And at the very end, the sorting and recycling of textiles, although that is the real end life is not what we are looking into in this project, but of course we understand that also the recycling systems need to be in place. And we have seen that we still need more effective policy measures. When it comes to textiles, we have now decided to look into what would happen if one could combine different kind of economic incentives for both sticks and carrots. So we try to look simultaneously into what would happen if one could have targeted fees for fast fashion products, some kind of seed money for companies that focus on clothing rental clothing as a service business models or life extension. If you could have VAT differentiation between new and second-hand products, maybe VAT reduction for repair services, and what kind of combination of economic incentives, I mean, could work the best in the Nordic countries to really make the markets better for reuse. And that is what we are going forward with now. We are currently looking for good experts in the Nordic countries that can help us with this dialogue on what would be feasible, what would have the most impact. And there have been a lot of experiments. There are a lot of studies on how to make this work, but still there are some question marks. So to end up my really brief introduction here, our key takeaways is really that we need to really shift from the recycling focus policy to covering the whole life cycle of materials and products. This is already happening on the policy level, but not maybe in reality. Waste prevention is a priority, but there are gaps regarding effective policies and a lot of uncertainty, so which policies will really have the effects that we hope for. We urgently need to create enabling operating environments for circular business models to make sure that they can thrive. And we need policy measures that target both the production, but also the consumption, because we need to target both the producers and consumers. And regulation and economic incentives are imperative, while these more kind of voluntary commitments and awareness raising provide useful supplements to them. So that was my introduction to our work. And if you would like to have more information, you can contact me or my colleague Olli Sahima, who is the project manager for this work. Thank you.
Excellent, Susanna Sepponen, excellent delivered, and also clarifying where you are at this process of looking at the opportunities of how to target waste prevention in the Nordics. I listened you well, shifting from recycle to whole product life, identifying the gaps and effective measures, the urgency. We will really try to tap into that later on. Also, the policies measures that are going both for production, consumption, and also learning and listening you out what kind of incentives that works. And if there's like one question, was there anything that surprised you when you did the deep dive into these deviating models for waste prevention?
There were quite a lot of things that maybe in some way surprised us, but mainly maybe that we found kind of a lot of studies and research that has been done already, like for a long time in the different Nordic countries. For example, I mean, a Danish study from 10 years back, where they really looked into the different kind of economic incentives for waste prevention. And it was quite, I mean, good analysis that has been done, I mean, already some years ago. And we also know that there has been a lot of this research built on and some testing in different countries on VAT differentiation and so on. But still, it was kind of surprising that we still struggle to really, I mean, to be able to kind of conclude on what kind of economic incentives would really have the effects that we are looking forward to. So I really hope that our case with the textile use case and the dialogue we will have in this autumn will shed some further light on what really would be feasible to do in the Nordic countries and what would have the most impact.
Well, one last question. Did you find anything that worked in one market and did not work in another, or where you would see benefits, and how do we share our experiences and learnings?
There were quite interesting examples in the different Nordic countries. I think that the Nordic countries are similar enough so that the things that will work in one Nordic country will probably work in the other Nordic countries. So I think that we have a lot of things that we can share between these markets. Then when it comes to kind of importing best practices from other European countries and from other parts of the world, there might be some more challenges, because I mean we have this our governance structure and our political environment is very open and democratic. And for example, we can see that it might be a little bit difficult for some Nordic countries to introduce very strict bans on different kind of things. But we also have very good environments for introducing very good kind of carrots and incentives for steering the development towards.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much, Susanna. So policy targets are really hard to pinpoint. We will really dive into this during the next hour. We got now a broad overview of policy and regulatives that will be needed, and now happy to introduce and invite from the EU Commissions to take this topic one step further. It is really one of the key steps will actually be an example we will be listening from soon. We are inviting Katrin Kutlesha, Policy Officer from the EU Commission, Directorate General for Environment, Sustainable Products Unit. It is really nice to invite you, because to make a system for reducing consumption and overproducts, we see how the eco-design evolution is now entering the eco-design revolution. And in the multiple regulations, we certainly see ESPR, and I can spell it out, Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, will connect materials and resource to products. This is where we welcome you to the stage, Katrin Kutlesha, and really would like to get the latest of the latest within the ESPR from you.
Thank you.
Yes, I will try to give you a very, very brief overview in 15 minutes on the eco-design for sustainable products regulation, one of the latest environmental policies that we have adopted in the EU. And let me, does that work? Eco-design itself is obviously not new. It's deeply rooted in EU policies, the Green Deal with its aims for climate neutrality, environmental objectives around zero pollution, and also the broader sustainable development agenda. And what I would like to stress here, that even more so since the update of the industrial policy on the focus on strategic autonomy, resource use, creating secondary markets for materials, circular economy policy and also eco-design has become more and more integrated into the broader industrial policy objectives. So from broader environmental to climate policies, really now it should be seen as an integrated opportunity also to create new business models and opportunities. The energy label and eco-design has been around since 1990. Most of us, statistically, 80% roughly, have used the energy label and eco-design when making purchasing decisions, mostly for white goods, energy appliances, and it has been tremendously impactful. So if you look at the statistics, in 2020, all eco-design measures on the different products combined have saved about 7% of the total primary energy consumption of the EU. And we're forecasting that by 2030, that will be even 10%. So it's significant energy savings that we're making through the eco-design measures. But obviously, at the moment, we're mostly having the energy lens. And this is what we're trying to change. There has already been an evolution as we move towards broader developments. So for example, with the smartphones and tablets at the moment, it was one of the first product groups where we moved way beyond, let's say, the classical energy angle. We introduced requirements on resistance, durable batteries, availability of operating system upgrades. So as a first example, saying really, okay, what do we have to do to make products more sustainable across the whole life cycle? How can we make more durable products and so on? And in the introduction, the revolution was already mentioned. So this is what is actually now happening with the new eco-design for sustainable products regulation. We've really taken the concept of the initial eco-design and broadened the scope in a dual way. Not only are now nearly all physical products in scope, but we've also introduced way more sustainability aspects. So as I mentioned, from energy use only, we're now considering the whole life cycle, durability, repairability, recycled content, carbon footprint, environment footprint, just to name a few. Other big changes or major changes relate to us now having also a very strong focus on information, product information, again, for consumer purpose, really to be able to compare products, make a conscious choice when purchasing products, but also for the whole supply chain to be able to understand what the impacts of products are and how they perform. So this will be done by the digital product passports and also to some extent labeling. More linked to the waste agenda that we're looking at today, there will be a ban on the destruction or discarding of unsold consumer goods, in particular textiles. We've looked at those, and footwear, with the potential to add more bans on destruction later on. And there will be, in general, a reporting obligation for all operators who discard unsold consumer goods. And what is also new, the legislation also introduces a general concept that companies or operators should really try to do their best to actually avoid having to be in the situation where they need to discard products. So that maybe duty of care, let's call it that way, is also introduced. We also have
certain drivers. We mentioned incentives and the need for incentives to make circular business concepts work. And green public procurement and the option to set such requirements is certainly one big driver or one big tool that we will have with the upcoming ESPR. And then we can also set horizontal measures. Horizontal measures will be measures that basically are cross-cutting across different product groups. I've mentioned already, we have very broad eco-design requirements now. And if you look at the list here, the key takeaway is we won't try to set requirements for every single item here on the list for each product. So it's clear that one has to assess, and for certain products, some aspects might be more relevant than others. But if you look at the list here, and again, take the waste angle, there is quite a few that are very obviously linked to waste, possibility of recycling, possibility of recovery of materials, but then also things that will impact waste indirectly. For example, if you prolong product life via repairability, durability, maintenance, refurbishment, you avoid that certain items go to waste early and reduce waste in that sense. So the waste agenda kind of is quite well interlinked or intertwined with ESPR aspects and quite a variety of ESPR aspects. What are the next steps with the ESPR? So I said it already, we've adopted, the Council and the Parliament both have adopted the final legal text. We're now waiting for the publication in the EU journal, and then we would slowly start with implementing the next actions. The big two next steps are the establishment of the Eco-Design Forum, which might be also interesting for some of the participants today, because this is basically the forum where stakeholders can contribute, where they will be consulted on measures and so on. And we'll establish the forum hopefully by end of the year, and also aim to have the first meeting then, and we'll have a call for memberships and so on. And then beginning of next year, we'll publish the working plan, which will lay out for which products we will start developing eco-design information and or performance requirements. And then based on timing, just that you have a rough timeline, we would envisage to have, let's say, the adoption of the first measures in 2026. That could be, for example, steel and textiles, as work on these has already started. And then further 18 months later, those requirements would apply. That would roughly mean 27, 28. So you see that those requirements won't come out of thin air. There's quite a thorough process involved in developing those. And also even for the selection of the products that will be prioritized. There are some prioritization criteria in the legal text, mostly based on environmental performance, market size, obviously also improvement potential without disproportionate costs. And furthermore, in the legal text, there has also been introduced by the Council and the Parliament a first initial list of requirements of potential product groups that should be prioritized: iron and steel, textiles, aluminum, furniture, tires, lubricants, just to name a few. There is the option for the Commission to omit or add products, but this would need a justification. There has already also been pre-work done by the JRC, and I've just put a quick screenshot on potential prioritization of products in the last year. Probably the final report will come out after summer. I still here in the presentation have the link to the draft report. But from a waste angle, it might be interesting for you also to look into it, because what JRC did is really assess a bit the life cycle in a qualitative methodology approach and say, okay, water, air, soil, biodiversity, climate change, waste aspects, what are, let's say, the hot spots for each product, and they assign points. And there are quite a few which range quite high when it comes to waste aspects. So I invite you to read the report as well, because if you're interested in specific product groups, there's quite a bit already also on the waste dimension in that JRC report. What are the next steps? So I've mentioned already a bit the timeline for the ESPR, and that will, in theory, can act on nearly all products, but realistically we'll have to prioritize. So we published a working plan, which will basically lay out over the next few years what the Commission can do with regard to products. And once a product is prioritized and we start the work, it will roughly take 1.5, 2, if not even more years to finish the initial study. So there's a preparatory study very similar to the current eco-design process, which looks at markets, which looks at consumer behavior, understanding life cycle impacts and what levers you actually would have and what design options could improve these. And then we would come up with initial ideas on information or performance requirements on products, and those would be consulted with the Eco-Design Forum. This is why really the Eco-Design Forum for the stakeholders and also for us will be of very, very big importance. And then measures would be adopted. Industry would have, and market participants would have 18 months at least. In certain cases, it could be also longer or slightly shorter, would then have 18 months to adopt before the measure would finally apply. And I really need to stress, stakeholder input will be collected throughout. So not only to consultations of the Eco-Design Forum, we also always invite stakeholders of industries that are affected or product groups to reach out, and we're very much open to the dialogue. That would be it from me. If we get the slides, I've already also added a few links, because we had a few weeks back a quite extensive webinar on the ESPR where we explain a bit more on the background that lasted 3 hours. So if you have the time and if you're interested, then see the links in the presentation, and then you can also rewatch that webinar or certain sections you're interested in. So that was it from my end. Thanks. I can't hear you, Catherine.
Now I think.
No. Yes.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Katrin, for excellent run through. It's showing us very clearly what's ahead. Still, 2027 is quite far away on a linear timeline. So what do you think, what do you suggest we can do in the meantime while you're running these policy innovation processes?
I think it depends a bit on the angle and who we is. There was a recent Eurobarometer study which dealt with EU citizens' feelings or ideas about environmental policy. And there was a quite interesting question linked to ESPR, whether citizens would be willing to pay more potentially for a more sustainable product. And if you look at the statistics, it's quite clear versus about 60% of EU average would say yes. It's about 80% of the Nordic countries. So I think that symbolizes that front runner approach in terms of environmental awareness, environmental ambitions. So I think the first thing is really kind of to keep doing what you're doing, because obviously you're doing it right, and act as a market lead and a role model also for others to follow. Apart from getting engaged, and I mentioned the processes on the product work, once maybe stakeholders would see that a product that impacts them would be prioritized. I think one other very important element of the ESPR, which is obviously not reflected in that product process, is the general transition to circular business models, how businesses can maybe change their practices, come up with new product ideas, products as a service, and so on. And there we had already in the ESPR also the idea of circular business hubs and how to connect businesses, share knowledge, and really help mainstreaming circular economy and circular business models. And I think this is what also something that is already quite advanced or also where very well established networks exist in the Nordics, like the Nordic circular hotspot. So I think also using those platforms to disseminate information and support businesses in the transition, that they then better suited to basically fulfill ESPR or act as front runners with regard to their products. So I think this is really will be in the next years very crucial and beneficial for the economy.
Thank you so much for your positivity and how you actually provide enthusiasm for the role of the Nordics. How might we step up and how can we go in front? It is now you really showed how circular economy has been more and more an industrial approach, and how this is should be integrated in business modeling and businesses. And this is where we welcome two very nice and fine cases from industry. One global established industry stakeholder in the floor market. I know Tarkett has even been in the front line to introduce global ISO in the market that was launched this spring on the horizontal ISO. And this is also very impressive to see how linear industries are transitioning and preparing for a future circular ready market. Welcome, Espen Josten. You've been in the forefront. You've been doing the corporate innovation, evolving materials. You do logistics, take-back systems, and building factories. And I love to pick your brain and let you share the experience, how you see the market ahead, going from linear to circular. Welcome, Josten.
Thank you. Thank you. I will try to share my screen.
Wow, this is perfect.
Perfect.
We are ready to listen. Thank you.
Perfect. As I said, we are a part of the Norwegian Floor Trade Organization, and this is taken out from a report that was published last year, which show sales of different product categories, and to the left, what kind of waste we produce in Norway in 2021. Most of it is heavy building materials, such as concrete, but flooring is either mixed waste or considered hazardous waste, depending on the age of the floors. Laminate is by far the biggest product sold in Norway. This is a small category for Tarkett. We sell more wooden floors and vinyl floors than we do laminate. Here is a short overview over Tarkett. We have 34 own-based factories. One fun fact is that we sell approximately 1.3 million square meters of floor each day worldwide. And with with the 23 R&D centers, we try to design our products for suitable for recycling already from when we define what kind of content our products will have. Short overview over our product portfolio, mostly vinyl and linoleum. Wooden laminate on the global scale is not that big, but in the Nordics, it's very much sold product portfolio. This is how most companies do it today, a linear structure where we take out raw materials, produce it, and then it's used for 15 years or more. And then it's removed and sent to incineration today. It's been said earlier today that by choosing floors with a long lifespan and maintain it is for sure better and will prevent waste. But when a floor in the future will be removed, our ambition is that it will not go to incineration, but it will be collected and used as raw materials into new floors when we produce it. By doing this, we avoid incineration, end of life. We replace virgin raw materials, and this has an impact directly on our product-specific EPDs, especially in C3, waste processing, where we do not incinerate, and A1, where we replace virgin raw materials with recycled material. We also try to document how much we save of CO2, for example, by recycling, and together with IVL, the Swedish Environmental Institute, we have calculated carbon reduction when recycling various kinds of floors, both installation waste, but also post-consumer floors, and then divided into either square meter or kilo. And here you can see some examples from vinyl offcuts, or for example, textile carpet tiles with the yarn, how much we save. Many producers in different industries claim that the product is recyclable. Are all floors recyclable? We think no, not 100%. It is claimed that many floors also are recyclable, but in our opinion, it's only truly recyclable if it's done according to a standard. This one, for example, ISO 14021, which requires that all the steps in the process are documented and that you have this in place locally in the country where you have the recycling process. Some examples on what we do. When you install floors on a new big projects, approximately 8 to 10% of the installation material is cut off and considered waste. We collect this directly from the projects, granulate it, and recycle it into new floors. And only installation offcuts from vinyl floors in the Nordics, we collected 779 tons in 2023. This is an okay volume, but only 20% of the potential. But it has generated a small collection that we launched this year, which is called IQ Loop, which contains 65% of recycled material. So we do recycle, and we do recycle them into new floors. On the right, you can see that we also have the capacity to clean off old floors and recycle them into new vinyl floors on the same way as we do with installation offcuts. We cooperate with other companies to make this happen. This chain of stores you probably have seen before with the yellow logo. We have over the past years collected more than 50,000 square meters of floors that are being removed when IKEA is refurbishing their warehouses. And this has been sent to recycling in our factory in Sweden. We also collect old carpet tiles. The pictures you see here are examples from office buildings that are being refurbished in cooperation with KLP and Entra. And in 2023, we collected 107 tons of old carpet tiles. And here we separate the yarn from the backing, and we send the yarn to a cooperating company who turn the old yarn into new yarns that we buy back and produce new carpet tiles from. One last example, the old Deichmanske library in Oslo. We have been a part of the mapping of the existing floors in this very old and very nice building. And here we have found that we can take back some old linoleum floors and also maybe some wooden floors as part of a pilot that we are running. To document to our customers what we do, we use what we call a restart certificate, where we can document to our customer what they have sent back by the year or by a project that they have done. And here we can document number of kilos that we have collected, and based on the calculation that we did together with IVL, we can also calculate how much CO2 equivalents a project or customer saves by sending it to recycling.
Espen?
Yep. Yes.
1 minute left. Yes, I'll just.
Yeah, I'm very quick. Opportunities. Reduce CO2 emissions by recycling, reduce the virgin materials and prevent waste, and establish cooperation between industries and other companies. That is for sure an opportunity. Challenges. We want to move away from how it's usually done without compromising standards or quality. Make cross-border legislation easier to understand, and also the documents following the shipments digital. And to increase circularity, we suggest that you demand recycling and save floors from incineration or landfill.
Thanks,
Thank you.
excellent. It is very insightful to see front runners who really are those who are within business models that try and experiment how to keep resources in loop and prevent waste, and also see how you identify maybe some issues or topics that might be solvable.
Yeah.
And this is also where I invite next speaker to the table. Looping was founded in 2017, and the founder, Jens Brustad, accidentally he drove past construction sites and observed contractor models covered huge quantities of waste and disposable plastics. This charged the idea from this ICT guy to start an innovation that has been actually fueled with capital raised to 100 million NOK, 10 million euros, and now 7 years after this, there are 14 people employed in looping. When we met 7 years ago, it was very funny because I recall you said, I didn't even know I did a circular economy business model. So please tell us about your journey and how you are disrupting the packaging and construction industry.
Thank you, Katrine. And as you said, my focus was to reuse and understanding circularity through you. I understood actually we were doing circularity. So that's how I was introduced to the circularity. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to tell a bit more about looping and how we are reducing waste by doing reuse. And what we basically do is creating value out of waste. And as you can see on my picture there, we need to be a bit disruptive, giving our customers a reminder that don't throw our products away. And that has been a fun project itself. So looping, we are reducing waste from transport packaging by introducing reuse in a circular business model. Looping was established in 2018. We're located in Oslo, Paris-Lystallé, where we have our administration. But we also have our looping maintenance hub, checking in and out products, repairing and washing, and prepare products for new usage. And we have a company in Sweden taking care of the Finnish and Swedish and Danish markets. In addition, we have our own production company in Lithuania, where we're actually being a producer motivated in producing as less possible products as possible. And that's a fun challenge. So what we focus on is quality and durability. Our current market is Norway, Sweden, and Finland, and Denmark, basically the Nordics, in addition to the Baltics. And our mission is basically to prove that reuse is an option to waste reduction. So what is looping? What is module cover? Module cover is our first product in market. What you see now is a bunch of temporary modules being stored on the site. And what is a module? That is a relocatable building being moved every 6, 12, 13, whatever month. At every time it's being moved, they need to dismantle all the buildings and protect the modules in the transport and the storage. That could be, like you see on the left there, construction modules on the building sites. But it could also be a kindergarten, a school, a hospital, or military complexes. And we also see a growing trend now in prefabricated housing modules. And that's where looping is designing and producing high quality protecting for the modules when they're stored and transported. We are offering our products through reuse as a service subscription model. And the value we're giving our customers is reducing waste, saving time, improving HSEQ and transport safety, and improved product protection. So starting this, we had to look at the problem, and packing things in plastics have we been doing for ages. So pretty interesting industry to enter, because we are challenging something has been done for ages, basically. But what we see is in Scandinavia, in average, about 200,000 modules is relocated, and that relocation causes about 3,600,000 kilos of waste every year. As you see here, you also have issues in transport, where all this plastic and the flexibility can cause transport safety issues. And that alone was a motivation for us, because the value proposition we want to go to market with was to reduce waste, but the willingness to pay only to reduce waste when we started the company wasn't enough. So we had to identify additional added values, basically to defend the pricing for our products. So what we're doing, what we see is that every time they remove a module, they are using single-use packaging to protect the product. Our idea was basically to develop and produce a high-quality product with long durability, so that single product could replace several single-use packagings over a year. And now our products has about 10 years lifespan, and in average, every product is used 3 times a year. That means that one product from us weighing 2.2 kilos, potentially over 10 years, can reduce 78 kilos of waste. But we found out that only producing high-quality reusable product wasn't enough, because our customer wasn't willing to do the change of management to practice the reuse. And that's how the subscription module emerged. We had to take care of the reuse. And by us owning the product, we also cared about the product, the utilization of the product, the quality of the product. So what we're doing now is designing quality products for our customers, producing it on our own production line, being full in charge of all the materials we're using in our products. And we distribute our products to local maintenance hubs around Scandinavia, basically washing and repairing and prepare products for new usage. And being able to do reuse, we basically have identified 3 critical components. We have to create closed loop systems, or identify closed loop systems, in order for us to get products back. We have to identify or create collaborations in the industry. It could be one customer having the same needs as another customer. Maybe that customer could remove the logo on the packaging, increasing the recyclability, but also allowing other customers to use it. And we have to find added values beside the waste reduction. We are offering the product as a pay-per-use. That means that every time the customer reduces waste or uses our products, we get paid. And our prices have to be competitive with the single-use plastics. And we need to monetize utilization, because all our margins is maximum utilization, whatever it takes, before we are putting a new product in the market. So on the left there, you see this diagram, where the customer now is basically paying for the time consumption, putting on the single-use plastics, and it's paying for the nails, the wood, and the plastic. Every time he uses it, he has this cost. And this is a cost looping is going to grow. So we are taking this cost, putting it into quality products, making sure products has long lifespan, allowing us to improve margins year after year after year, and always chase utilization of what's already produced. In order to do this, we need help from technology. All our products is labeled with RFID, allowing us to always monetize the utilization. We can have repair statistics on the maintenance and repair, see what's causing the damages, how to improve the products in order to improve the longevity of the products. And we are in charge of all the waste reduction, well, the material consumption and the waste we put on market, since we own the product and are in charge of getting it back again. This allows us having digital twin of the product, also allows us to facilitate for order and returns of products out when it's in the market. We could also offer user manuals, how to use our products, how to educate the users. And at the end, we are creating digital product passports. So our product has an EPD. We are making recycled protocol products and also a digital product passport. And in order for us to put a high quality product on the market, we have to have this in place, because this is where our margins lies, making the product being used several times over many, many years. So I want to finish off with a presentation of a waste achievement report with Ramrent, who was our first customer. At the left, you see the old method, covering big walls with plastic, putting it on the module with nails and wood. In the middle, you see our product, the reusable cover. In total, Ramrent with these products in 2018 reduced 214 tons of waste. That waste consists of 80.5 tons of single-use plastic, equivalent to 60 football fields, 128 tons of wood just attaching the plastic on the modules, and above 5 tons of nails attaching the wood to keep the plastic in place. And what did looping do to do this reduction? We actually also put product in the market, plastics. So in order for us to reduce 214 tons of waste, we put 22 tons on the market. That means a 90% net reduction. But before going into recycle, we would like to look at further new purposes. So now we are having collaboration with our customers, buying reproduced products, creating new values as shopping bags, etc. Yes. You give me a hint that I have 2 minutes left. I have so much to tell about.
I know you have quite a long lifespan for your products, and so, but the time is scarce and limited. So my final question before we invite for the panel is, how do you see the Nordic borders? We heard the border legislation. How do you see the Nordic or Baltic collaboration could be improved within our markets?
Well, Norway being the side of EU are putting some limitations here, because every time we are sending a product out of Norway, we need to declare it every time we get it back again as a new product. I think looking at cross-border transactions would help a lot. And I really believe that now looping has created our own little ecosystem for reuse of our packaging. We see several companies now emerges doing that, and then we need to collaborate and have the utilization of maintenance service, transports, and everything.
Thank you, Jens Brustad, sharing your extensive experience and your enthusiasm for business models within reusability.
Thank you.
This is a perfect jump over to our expert panel. We are inviting politicians and industry experts. This is where Sanna Due, your expert, circular economy and waste prevention, biodiversity, health and resource program within European Environmental Agency. Give me your first comment on what you heard now, and we're also inviting Ola Elvestuen, Deputy Chairman in the Committee for Sustainability Nordics within Nordic Council. And please join us and let us together summarize what we have heard, learned, and what we might solve together in this discussion.
Okay, thank you. Could I start with some reflections? So thanks for inviting me. Yeah, and this was so inspiring and interesting. I have a background working in this specific group, actually being chaired until 2015. And then I was away for some time, and now I'm responsible for the waste prevention at the European Environment Agency for 2 years. And so much has happened, and there is so much more awareness and knowledge. And I think what we really have to do now is to have the kind of bold implementation of all the supportive legislation that also has been developed at European level. And it was super inspiring also to hear about these concrete business cases for circular economy that actually we need so much. I don't know how long my reflection should be, maybe that was enough.
Thank you. I'll bring you back. Thank you for the enthusiasm. And actually, it's
Yeah.
maybe when we test these policy and regulations in real life that we might get a broader picture of how we might scale this. Ola Elvestuen, member of Nordic Council, deputy leader on Sustainable Nordics. How does this look from your side, the connected Nordics on circular transition?
Well, I agree. It's also very impressive what a lot of individual actors are doing. Also, the rules that are being made within the EU. I mean, the EU is definitely a leader in the circular economy on how to make this mark and make this happening in the world. But also in the Nordics, we need to learn from each other. And we have to try to have a leadership role, and it's really in every aspect. I mean, it's really about using less. That's important, and it's also to show people. You need the political leadership to show that this is not about lowering their standing of living. It's about owning less, but having access to more if it's done in the right way. And I think we also have a lot to learn from each other on that. Not only on the national level, but also I think cities are doing a lot of good things on this. And how do you share sports equipment? How do you use things broader? You don't need a car, you need transportation. There's so many ways to do this. And also, how do we use public procurement in the right way to also reducing the waste that are there? We can be much more aware than we have been. The Nordic countries, we can support stronger our eco-label, the Swan, that is there, that is also guiding people how to make the right decisions. And I also think it's important that you have this leadership that in a world where our problems seem so massive with global warming, loss of nature, everything there, it's important to have this leadership to show that individual decisions also matters, and have this have people wanting to be part of doing the right things at the same time as we make sure that what is being done are large enough so that it has the right impact, so we reach the goals that are set by the EU, that it reach the goal of reducing emission, reducing waste, and doing this fast enough and at the scale that is necessary.
I'll listen your word fast now, because the time is scarce and we have committed ourselves to waste reduction targets, which are pretty ambitious. The Nordic region has one thing in common. Each one of us has maybe the largest waste per capita, maybe the longest journey to go. And that's also but we were encouraged by the EU Commission representative today that they believe in the Nordic citizen and communities. How do you comment on this, Sanna and Ola? How might we actually do the large, big steps, leapfrogging these opportunities we saw today?
Yeah, so I started very positively there, but of course, the reality is also that we have a very slow uptake of circular economy business models. Waste amounts are increasing every year. We had a dip during the pandemic, but that was a pandemic effect we can see now, because now it's increasing again. We have not reached a decoupling, so we have, I mean, it's a long way to go here. And I actually like what you said here, Ole, about that everybody has to be part of this transition. And I think also one of the key messages now that we cannot only look at supply side measures. ESPR will be very important and so on. We have to be very, have more knowledge and also put in place demand side measures. Look at the concept of sufficiency. What is enough consumption for a good life or for well-being? Not only for us, but for everyone actually globally. I think that's something. And I also think that countries, and now I'm thinking of the Nordics, maybe have to go forward a little bit more, setting binding targets, reduction targets. We will hopefully have one now for food waste soon. It's one of the first waste prevention targets that is quantified. We think, I'm talking from the agency, that more of those actions actually are needed. And also this sense of urgency. And look at circular economy measures and waste prevention as a means of acting on the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity, and pollution. Super strong linkages. We could develop that communication even more. We see a lot of action on climate side, but waste prevention is a super effective climate measure. Maybe we could develop the communication and knowledge a little bit more when looking at waste prevention measures. I'll stop there.
Develop this knowledge. How do you see in your responsibility? How do you see the impact of a transition and change from here now?
Well, as we've shown here too, I think there's a lot of good examples, and I also think that there's a lot of right things that are being done. Also on sharing more, trying to reduce how much we need to own. Also this on food-based reduction. I mean, I think most people now have taken in that they do not need to follow that label on when you cannot use a food item. I mean, they look at it, they trust their senses more. These things are happening. What the difficulty is to get it up to scale, because we're not reaching the targets, at least in Norway, for 2025 on the waste that and the material waste that we have to recover. We're not reaching it, and we are also still setting goals, but not putting up the policies really to reach it. Because even though we have a set goal and had it a long time that we are to reduce food waste by 50%, the policies by 2030, the policies are not there. We're going towards the target, but we have to reach these targets.
Are you ready to work for giving us binding targets on this?
Oh, definitely. And I think where the Nordics need to kind of cooperate more is to create when you talk about material reuse, that's one thing, but material recovery, we need to create a market for it so that these materials can cross borders, and that companies that are looking for materials that they can recover and reuse, they have a place to go. Instead of that, you have to do everything within one company. That's where we need to have a better cooperation. And what you really need is good documentation, because you have to be sure what is in these materials. You need transparency on every level so that you can trust what the documents are. And you need more standardization. And of course, that goes very close with eco-design and the rules that are being made within the EU. But I think the Nordics here could take a leading role. And it's good economics. This is not only an environmental issue. This is good for business in Nordic countries.
Maybe this was also the listen out of both Looping and Tarkett. These are integrated in the business models where they are profitability in waste reduction. Sanna, we have been listening also to these cases show us how Looping is using digital product passports, RFID, and tracking materials on their journey as Tarkett is doing. How might we actually do as Catherine from EU Commission said, how can we normalize the circular economy or the reuse economy, the waste-free economy? How do you see will be the next steps that should be acted to?
Was that for me? I'm
yes.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so here at the agency, we started collecting reuse data from the countries last year. And now we're collecting, so on Monday, they have to report for 2021. And one of those are construction materials. We have textiles and we have furniture and electronics. The data is very shaky because there are no really clear methodology, but we can see that it is happening. And the more we know, the more we get a base level that we can use setting targets on where we want to go. So I think that's very important to encouraging this by different ways, making it cheaper to reuse than, of course, buy new products. Setting targets followed by very clear policy measures that countries implement, and measure also that the progress towards these targets. But also we talk about reuse, which I'm very in favor of, and we will help now the European Commission in the review of the reuse clauses in the Waste Framework Directive to maybe see, do we need more action here and more policies? And I think the result will be when we look into it, yes, we need more. But we also have to look at the rebound effect here. When people use more, the money you save, what do you do with that money? So that's something we will look into next year, actually. So always thinking of reuse, it's not the only solution. It's rethink also. Do I even need to buy something new? But of course, if I do, reuse is better than new product. So there are many things to do, but the first thing is what we can't measure, we can't manage. So we're starting to collect this data now, and it was super interesting to hear about looping. And I will reach out to you here and send an email to have you as a good example when we have webinars on this topic, if you are available.
He's nodding back in the room here. I think that's very feasible, Susanna.
Yeah,
indeed. And this is also where we also heard from Susanna Sepponen and Gaia suggesting sticks and whip and stick and carrots. So we might have quite clear requirements, but for those who actually gain and are in the forefront of this, what can they gain? What are the carrots given to those who really pave way in front?
Well, that is, as I said, we need to show that we can help creating this market, so it becomes easier to have access to the materials that can be recovered and reused. So it's easier to go there. So it's not as difficult, easier to go to cross borders. We have to use, and I think we can learn from each other on how to use taxes, VATs, lowering VATs on repairing, etc. Sweden has done something there. I think Norway should look into how is it working. When it comes to textiles, I think, not that I'm an expert, I think what is happening in France is very exciting. And we should really look into if it is working or not. Also how they use their laws against the food waste is also interesting. But and now it has been working for so long that we should look at the results. So it's not, even though it's very important to have as strong EU rules as possible. And in these areas, I mean, when it comes to waste management, Norway and Iceland, here we are fully members of the EU. I mean, the rules, they come here too. So it's just to work as close as we can to be part of making those rules. That's important. But then also have this and seeing the innovation and flexibility in national governments, but also local governments, because I think there's a lot that's being done, and we need to be in contact and learn from each other.
Yeah, how can you please share the role that you work with in the Nordics? We saw the iceberg, so we come from eco design evolution and now entering revolution as resource management is coming to be part of the sustainability and eco design policies. How are you including circular economy and waste prevention within your committee and the work that the agendas you're working with in the time ahead?
Well, in the Nordic Council, as I'm a member of the parliament here in Norway and then sit in the Nordic Council. Of course, what we look into always, what is the Nordic added value? Mm-hmm. What can we do that parliaments cannot, which is not better for them to do alone? So there, one area is that makes it easier for recovered materials to cross borders. That's one of these things that I really think we should look into. How to increase the role of the eco-label, was one that is something that was started very early from the Nordic Council. That is something that we should follow on to. Also in the international cooperation, I mean, we need to get I'm sorry. But we need also to get I mean, when it comes to getting an international agreement on marine waste, that the Nordic Council has played Nordic ministers has played a crucial role earlier. Also, how to look at how such an agreement can be put together. That's something that we need to get a hold on. So I think we have to be there on many levels, but as something that's added on to what the countries do by themselves.
I'm really excited to see how we might maybe Nordify a little bit of the challenges and the actions ahead. And this is also, you have been working with this field so extensively, Sanna. We heard also earlier addressing that the Nordic communities might have governance issues if we are to like categorize problem solving together how can you identify these? Do you understand this, or how can you pinpoint how we can cope with this?
You mean governance issues?
Yes.
Can you specify a little bit?
We heard that if the Nordics will be incorporating and collaborating faster to implement waste prevention policies, this might be challenging the existing way that our governments work.
Well, I think we do have a good cooperation where we are today, but there's always border challenges. They are always there.
Mm-hmm.
And even though if you take one away, something else is coming up as different countries are developing their policies. So that's a part of this, I think. So we need to be, how can I say, we need a closer cooperation. And also to reaching the goals that have been set by the EU. I mean, we should have reduced it's 50%, isn't it? By 2025, we're not there. 65% by 2035. So it's we need to do a lot.
Oh, now I understand. I thought it was okay. Border challenges, so it was governance. No, but it's interesting because all this in the European legislation that is so heavy and also heavy to implement, that we have the same challenges. I say we because I'm from Sweden. I used to work at the Swedish EPA together with the Nordic colleagues. And it's really such a good opportunity to help each other. Let's say you're developing a circular economy action plan or reuse action plan to really support each other with developing the knowledge that's needed to tailor it for the Nordic context, for example, or arrange seminars, webinars, work with the stakeholders, because we have the same agenda that we are implementing, I would say to 80–90%, just guessing. So it's like having all these multiple amounts of colleagues from the other countries. And I would also like to reach out a hand to this Nordic group for, I think the name is now Circular Economy, understood. My time is changed from waste management to waste prevention, and now it's circular economy, which is a great way to go, I think. To also collaborate with the agency. We have possibility to have co-creation projects where we actually can showcase this is how they do it. You do it in the Nordics, and we have resources, we have staff, we have knowledge, and we work together with you, so we could do something together here.
That's quite a handover invitation for dancing, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And we should, of course, cooperate. And also, when you look at the larger, I mean, the waste with like building materials, for instance. I mean, first of all, we have to learn from Mr. Schelde that we have to stop tearing down buildings. That is the first one. They only have to be redone and build upon, but they should not be torn down. So you have to reduce the waste from buildings at all. But again, it has to be creating a market for the waste that is there, so that they can be recycled and easier be recycled by others than it is today. And that should be looked at in a Nordic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very happy that we have aligned. We have looked at the larger picture. This is an ongoing process. We need to co-learn, share, and evolve this. Time is still one of the resources that still are pretty linear. We are counting down. And thank you all for being part of this session, invited by Nordic Working Group for Circular Economy. Especially thanks to Sanna and Ola for sharing reflections in the end here. And also thank you, Siri Arntzen-Bellika, Susanna Sepponen, Katrin Kutlesha, Espen Josten, Jens Brustad. And we all hope you were inspired by and filled with new knowledge, and can't wait till the next steps of these policies hitting into the markets.
Thank you so much.